Hello, welcome to the Convertium AI podcast, Grit and Growth. Today, I am joined by Stanley Adwell, the president of IntelliSteel. His team is pioneering fully integrated design build solutions with advanced steel framing systems, transforming the way projects move from concept to completion. With decades of experience in construction and focus on innovation, Stanley has a front row seat to the challenges of information flow in the field and how technology is bridging the gap. It makes him a perfect addition to our topic today, which is why most information dies in the field and what to do about it. Stanley, do you want to take a few moments and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about IntelliSteel?
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. Stanley Adwell, CEO and co-founder of IntelliSteel. I started this business back in 2016. I spent the 4 years prior working directly with and educating the North, Central, and South American markets for the technology that we employ in our factories. So it's basically a hardware and software technology that's applied to today's construction practices through automated, accelerated, precision, advanced framing. So we're located in Groveland, Florida, and we have another factory located in Texas, and we are due to open our third factory in Michigan before the end of this year, 2025. And we have spent the majority of our time figuring out exactly how to deploy what we do into a very resistant construction market, a very old and traditional construction market. And it has taken us about this much time. The 4 years prior and the 9 years I have with IntelliSteel, we finally got there. So we've broken through.
That's awesome.
You had mentioned like what we do. So basically what we do is we take a set of drawings, architectural and structural drawings. We act as the structural engineer of record, or we are the delegate engineer if they already have a structural engineer. And we believe that our differentiation is our ability to design and engineer and optimize cold formed steel that is not optimized today in today's practices with traditional steel construction. So the moment we get involved, which we call it's 80% upfront and 20% delivery. That 80% upfront includes taking a set of plans, optimizing and designing them for cold formed steel, whether they were designed in wood or designed in concrete. And we take that and we turn it into a 3D model. And that 3D model then absorbs with us all of the different trades, the mechanicals, electrical, plumbing, and we clash detect. We take all the rough openings that are typically found out later or fixed in the field in traditional construction. We do all of that up front. So that way, what we do is we end up producing panels, just like you see over my shoulder, wall panels. It's basically, we turn the entire structure, whether it's 1 story or 16 stories, into a jigsaw puzzle. So we're taking the steel directly from the mill, running it right through our machines. Our machines are designing every single stud to exact millimeter tolerance. We have zero waste, and we deliver these panels, these joists, these trusses for the entire superstructure on the job site in a sequential order so that they can be installed rapidly and quickly.
Won't you elaborate on the benefits of doing that for the
Sure.
construction site? Let's tell our listeners a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. I think that, I think that we've been building the same way for so long that we almost don't even understand that technology hasn't even entered into the construction space at all. It may have in BIM modeling or it has outside the construction site, but the construction site is pretty much building the same way it's built for over 100 years. They get a bunch of lumber, it shows up on the job site, they go through it, they find out the best lumber, they put it together, they take it to the job site, they erect it, and they have to basically figure this out on the job site. And, I used to resist general contractors because I thought they were the blockade. They were the ones who were resisting. It wasn't until I had a chance to, I guess, mature in the industry that I realized that the general contractor in traditional construction is a victim. And I mean this by the general contractor is given a set of architectural plans and structural plans. These are not completely vetted out. They've not been made buildable. They've been made conceptual and with an intention. And then the general contractor receives these and they're told, go build this in the field and build it in the field at the cheapest way you possibly can, as fast as you can. And we're going to bring your margins down as low as we can. And good luck. And that is so unfair to the general contractor. And I understand why our construction costs have gone up, why our errors have gone up in construction. We've had more failures and problems on the job site. It is not because of the general contractor. The general contractor is basically putting together a structure with one eye, the other one's covered, his hands behind his back, and his legs tied up. How do you build? You can't. What we do is through our process, Jessica, we're kind of forced to do everything up front. So what we actually do is we take the architectural set of plans and then we marry them up with the structurals so that they actually can see all the different penetrations from the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Whereas on the job site, traditionally, it's just a jumbled mess and you can't see that. And then everybody starts doing what they can to make it work. And then that costs money. It costs time. There's errors, there's delays. It's what we see every day. And it's why we have a huge backlog of demand in the US for housing. And on every project, if Jessica, you've been in building, you know this,
Yeah.
how many projects stay on budget and on schedule? It's not because of the general contractor. It's because they're dealing with the problems that were never vetted out. We are
Hmm.
forced to go through this process. That's why I said it's 80% upfront. We have general contractors, structural engineers, architect, and BIM modelers on our staff, and they are looking at this from a constructability standpoint, not just, hey, let me get my material out to the job site and wish them luck. In
Hmm.
fact, even though we don't even install, Jessica, we still stay involved all the way through because at the end of the day, my reputation is going to land on the part of the job that's not even mine, which is the installer. And the installer is not me. The installer is any installer that can put together a jigsaw puzzle, whether it be wood, concrete, metal, drywall, doesn't matter. They all can do it. So I think that's where the biggest difference is I think the construction site has suffered from a lack of completed plans, thoughtful plans that indicate constructability, and not forced to figure it out on the job site. We find that the general contractors that start to work with us realize we've taken 70% of their problems off the job site. Now they're just focused more on delivering a building, working on the schedule versus having to fix problems.
Yeah, 100%. We definitely ran into a lot of that in construction where
Yeah,
the concept is beautiful, but the reality is something completely different. And
correct.
having that cohesive part of engineering completely covered in the beginning and not kind of winging it as you go is pivotal. Well, that kind of brings me into our questions for today. In your experience, what's the number one reason critical project information gets lost between the design table and the job site?
I think it's a little bit about what we covered. I think that
Mhm.
it's that incompletion set of information contained in the
Mhm.
drawings that are made to be built by the general contractor. And that information does not include the information it requires for the general contractor to be successful. That's where I just really believe I went 180 degrees. I thought they were my enemy and they are actually the victim. And I try to help them out because I think that the minute that you don't have communication, whether it's through the drawings or through personal, you don't have any communication happening on the job site, you instantly dilute the ability for it to be successful, at least in my opinion. And I
100%.
think that you see that information loss happening because of that disconnect and because we've continued to do it the same way.
100%. I agree. 100%. Communication was always the biggest problem. And
Mhm.
when we were running either 10 projects or 120 something projects, you're only as good as the information that you're getting from the field. And you can only execute based on what you're receiving. So if you're only getting a partial picture, you're only giving a partial.
And could you imagine, Jessica, right? So, yeah, and you know this right on the job site. So you got a framer. This
Mhm.
could be a subcontracted framer, maybe new on the job. Take a look at the plans. And the general contractor has told him, go to town, make this work. Well, this subcontractor is looking at something that's not buildable. They've got to find a way to communicate that back upstream. When they communicate it back upstream that it's not buildable, the general contractor could either become defensive or have to go the other way and figure this out. And then there's that whole dilution of time where everybody's trying to figure out something that should have been figured out long before in the beginning. It should have been pre-built like we do. We pre-build it in advance in the model in
Mhm.
advance, and then it come back downstream. So you look at what's happening on the job site and everybody is basically working with half of the information and they're told to do it faster, quicker, and cheaper.
And then you got the information stick where you're just not getting that information from above or below. And then you
That's right.
have days worth of delays, sometimes weeks worth of delays, or
Yes.
you're waiting on a higher up over here to make a decision on a minuscule thing that could have just been handled with one solid yes. So
Sure.
I totally understand
Absolutely.
that. Do you have any specific experiences or examples of when that caused measurable cost or scheduled impact in your own projects?
Sure. We've had projects where we have designed everything to the job site. And when it gets to the job site, everything is building. And then the owner comes out and determines that they don't like the way that that looks or is, and they want to redesign that. Right. And that happens in, custom homes all the way up to, large scale buildings. We've had situations where the project has already been permitted and designed, and then we are replacing that with our material. And then when we do that, we pick up probably 90% of the issues. And those other 10% are just issues that just seep through the cracks. And I don't propose that what we do is perfect. I never will. But I'll tell you that while we get rid of most of them, 10% of that seeps through is still kind of the same thing that you have to deal with. You can't catch every little thing if it's not designed by us and we're designing it's somebody else's design and we're basically converting it. So, I think you see it in areas where you've got the framer not understanding how something goes together in a 3D model. They're used to walking out with a bunch of studs. Here's the funny thing, right? So, and we see this all the time. It's one of my favorite things is when you go out to a job site and you take a framer who's got their framing belt, and that's what they
Mhm.
do on a daily basis. They're craftsmen, right? They're
Yes.
skilled. You take off that belt, you take everything out of their hands and you hand them a pouch that's got screws in it and you hand them a drill and you tell them all you need is this and a level and you go to town and you can put this whole building up. It's a minute for them to digest it. It takes a few
Mhm.
for them to understand that they can actually do this. But once they get about 6 or 8 hours into the project and they realize how fast and quick it's going and how much lighter it is, all of a sudden now they become your fans quickly.
I bet. No, yeah, less labor intensive in a
Yeah, it
sense.
is.
Less
It is.
cuts, less placement, less measuring.
Yeah, our we have a saying on the site. If you have to cut it, call us first because you probably don't have to cut it. It's probably just a measurement. We can show you where it's at.
Flip it around.
Yeah, that's what usually is. It's usually flip it around.
Flip it around. So, what strategies or tools have worked best for your team to prevent these kind of losses?
So we do several things. I think we spend, as I mentioned before, we spend a lot of time with all the different stakeholders on staff that allow for us to look at what's happening on the job site through the job site's view, right? It's
Mhm.
not a manufacturer delivering material and they're figuring it out on the job site. We're looking at it all the way down to not only what may happen, what has happened in the past. And then before we even do that, we pull together the installer, whoever the installer is going to be. We bring them in house and we page turn. We do a page turn with the installers, let them ask questions, let them see things that they don't understand. We throw up the 3D model that gives them the ability to look at the plans and the visual. By the time they get to the site, now what's happened is they've connected the visual with a 3D with a set of 2D plans. You won't believe how few calls we get from the job site when we do that. And I won't. So we didn't do that forever. So in the past, when we didn't do it, we'd have this like back and forth, and they call us and we'd show them, call us and we'd show them. That still worked great. But what we do now is by implementing this page turn, we basically call it, that's the pre-build page turn. It has changed everything.
I, I can imagine. I can imagine. A shifting point in my renovation business was when I definitely over explained
Yeah.
the things that we were doing in a home. I'd walk with all the crews, all the trades, and they'd have a copy of their scope of work. Each of them would. I'd take my time one on one, walk room to room, and just go everything top to bottom. And that really eliminated a lot of the back and forth. I know some of the
Yep.
larger companies we worked with the REITs would mass produce scopes. And I got way more calls with that when you don't have that hand to hand, person walking you through. But
Uh, it just
if you
it
could,
just does help a
yes, sir.
lot. I would say that the 3D model visual for us on the structure side
Mhm.
has changed the game for us. And it's just a
I can
small thing
imagine.
that we implemented. We've always had it. We just never did this in the process. And now that we're doing this, it has changed our headaches. It has changed the job site's headaches. It's the framer is just completely engaged because a framer is typically looking at it in 2D and they can't see the whole visual. When they can see the visual up on the wall, they can understand it, what they're building. They love it. They really, really become engaged.
Side note, the new VR stuff that's going out, you can put the little VR glasses and look around and see everything mapped out before you. That stuff's
Oh yeah.
awesome. Might
It,
want to
it and,
touch.
I love all, this is innovation. It's anywhere we can get innovation. I don't care where it's coming from. We need it. Construction just needs it.
Yeah, 100%. If you could have perfect visibility on one thing at all times in a project, what do you think that would be?
Well, if I could say one thing on visibility through a
Or
project,
three?
I'd probably think it's having that direct contact with the installer. And I
Yeah.
say that because I'm basically nuanced because I'm always worried about the framing because it's not me doing it. So having that, if I could just stand over and watch everything and every person while I could on the job site doing what they do, I think that would be the best thing for our team. If our PMs could have that ability, that's why we're on the site so much. We're on the site just to be there. We're just there as a resource. So we show up on site. It's like, hey, what do you need? What have you seen? What have you found? What are you struggling with? And then we look around to see if we see anything that might be slightly off or not right. And it's such a good relationship once we get there because they don't feel like they're being pressed by the general contractor. Because what happens is we kind of leave the general contractor out of it. They're focused on the other things that they should be focused on. we are focused on delivering them the right product, right? So having that relationship with the general, having that really tight oversight with the installer is probably for me what I think our team would want the most.
All right. Awesome. What do you think? We got a couple more minutes, so I'd like to go over a couple other just random conversational questions
Sure.
for you about the company. So, what got you into this whole entire endeavor? Tell a little bit about yourself and the background that got you here. You had a pretty amazing story when we had our intro call, so I want you to share a little bit of that.
Yeah, it wasn't planned, that's for sure. I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, I'm not a GC, so it's not my experience. I did have a design engineering company, but again, I had great design engineers doing data centers, pioneers in data centers. So I was introduced to this technology through a mutual friend. So I had sold my company prior to, and this individual who owns a technology that we employ, that individual is out of New Zealand, and they dominate the entire world except for North and South America. And he was looking for a decision. Do I come into these markets or do I not? Because either way, it's an investment. So if he comes in, it's a big investment and he dilutes his focus on the rest of the world, but yet it's a larger market in the US. It also could mean that if it doesn't work, it's going to cost him more money. So I wasn't, because I had offices and experience in North, Central, and South America. He wanted to touch those two key markets, specifically Brazil, which I had a lot of experience in, and in US. And I didn't take the call the first two times. And then my friend's like, just take the call for 30 minutes. You're going to like this guy. You're going to like what he's doing. Just take it and I'll stop bothering you. And I took the call and I talked to the owner for 3 hours. A couple weeks later, I was on a plane to New Zealand. And I came and I walked in and saw the factory. I saw how they put these machines together. I saw their software. I saw what they were doing. And it was just so staggering. It's like space, right? You just walk up and you see something amazing in front of you. And I couldn't understand why we weren't doing it. And then when I realized how they were doing it all over the world, it was even more jaw dropping. So I then traveled around the world. I left New Zealand. I watched what they did in New Zealand. I went to Australia. I went to Japan, Kuala Lumpur, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, and Dubai. And every time the scale got bigger, the application got larger. And at that point, I was just like, yeah, of course this is going to work in the US. And this was in 2013. So the US was just starting to come back out of its 2009 depression, right?
Hmm.
And I had done some small developments, so I knew the pitfalls of standard construction. And I saw that this filled all these gaps: labor, speed, cost, resiliency, durability, et cetera. And I thought, why are we still building in wood? So I stepped in and helped them for 4 years kind of educate the market with architects and engineers in North, Central, and South America, hired some teams and deployed this technology across the market in all these areas. And in doing so, I decided that at one point, to scale this in the US, we're going to have to scale this differently than the way that they're going to market. So I started IntelliSteel. And me and the owner are great friends, and I'm one of probably their largest customer in the US. And we're continuing to grow. And it's not been easy, Jessica. It's been a consistent, nonstop battle against, I think, what are considered myths. Everybody thinks that steel's more expensive than wood. It's not. It's not. I've proven it. They think that steel was going to be more difficult to install. It's not. It's actually faster and cheaper the way that we do it. So, combating all these things which are standard in construction, and everybody's trying to go fast, and nobody wants to take a risk. A general contractor doesn't want to take a risk on something they don't understand because their margins are already small, and
Hmm.
taking a risk to destroy all their margin with something they don't even understand. So I get it, right? But
Hmm.
it's now time to change. And we've got right now, in the last less than 2 years, we've added on about 12 million square feet of projects awarded to us. And I think
That's
that
awesome.
there's nobody in the globe that's got that kind of volume.
That's awesome.
And that every one of those has been a trudgery of explanation, analysis. They pull us through the keyhole, from the estimator to the general contractor to the owner to the developer to the architect to everybody. And when they finally get on board and they see it, it's a game changer. We had an owner decide to come to us in 2 years ago. They came to
Mhm.
us and said, "Look, we've got a project that's permitted in wood. It's located in Michigan. We'd like to consider going to metal. We're done with wood. We'd like to be done with wood." And we gave them a price. That price is $5 cheaper, shipping from Florida to Michigan. We built the largest
Mhm.
building in Brighton, Michigan. That building
Nice.
spun off from that owner, four more projects from that owner instantly. And then that general contractor who did not want to work with us, but came down and was open-minded enough to come down and figure and look at it and see it when they understood it, they jumped right on. And that we've got, I think, 9 or 11 projects with them. And
That's
then
awesome.
that project in 4 months, it threw off, I think we got 23 buildings in Michigan, which is why we're opening Michigan. And guess what? We never, ever had thought about Michigan the day before that owner
I bet.
approached us.
I bet. What was your timeline on that build? Did you cut time and everything after
Yeah.
production
Yeah.
in the
So what
field? I
happened
think that's
was,
a
is
big selling point for a GC too. The less time they'll be on the project and the more money technically they'll be making if it's over
it's a
6 months.
it's a big selling point, and I think that's one of the reasons why the general contractor continued to work with us after that. Right.
Mhm.
So they, on their job site, it was a 4 story over a parking garage down below and a
Mhm.
podium, concrete podium. So they had an issue with the podium in a corner of it, and it pushed their schedule back by, I think it was by 12 or 14 weeks. It pushed their schedule back.
Wow.
And I remember the superintendent early on really starting to panic because it was one of his bigger jobs, newer jobs. And he was just like, I will never catch this schedule. We're going to be way over. Right. And I kept telling him, just if you just hold the line, I promise you will make up the time. It'll come up. He just couldn't believe it. And if I was him, I wouldn't believe me either. We just kept telling him, we're going to make up the time. We're going to make up the time. The guys will get faster. You'll see. We'll make up the time. We
Mhm.
we not only made up the time, they did the topping off and planted the last joist on top of that building the day that they were supposed to on original schedule. And
Nice.
I think that's one of the things that made the general contractor recognize that, amongst other things too. The trades went faster. Here's the thing, which I didn't know, but a job like that for them, they had budgeted about 250 grand for dumpster pulls, right?
Mhm.
Waste from a typical wood
Yep.
framing job.
Yep.
They saved $243,000 on that job
That's
just on
crazy.
waste. No one thought about that line item, and I don't even sell that line item. So
And you
there's
should.
all these little.
Environmental impact is going to be such a big thing going
Oh yeah,
forward. I mean, that's a huge selling point. That should be right up there with your production times.
it's Jessica, that's a great point because right now we have Chase Bank, Panera, SpaceX,
Mhm.
Regions. These Every one of these companies have required us to provide sustainability reports and information on our. They've asked for it. So
Yes.
you're right, exactly to your point. Sustainability is moving through, whether it's coming from the financiers or it's coming from altruistically the owners and developers, or it's coming from the cities for credits. All of that is starting. We're starting to see it more and more now. Our
Mhm.
material is 100% from the U.S., so all of our steel comes from the U.S. All
Awesome.
of it comes to us just under 90% recycled already. Everything that we kick out of our machine, which are just holes and little pieces, are less than 2% waste, and 100% of that is recycled. And the building itself, if taken down, is 100% recycled on the framing. So you're
Yeah.
right.
That makes
Sustainability is
lead
it's
construction.
coming. It's coming fast. Around
It
the
is.
world, if you look around the world, the general contractors, the same building, GCs like us around the world that we have here, all of
Mhm.
them on their page have sustainability reports on their front
Yep.
page, on their landing page, on their websites. All of them. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, everybody wants to be more conscious about the environment and what we're doing to protect it because there is
Yeah.
so much construction waste. It's one of the major players in it. So that's awesome. That's a good selling point for that. I guess my last question would be in close is since it's Convertium AI, where do you see improvements in your industry for the use of AI long term?
We're investigating that. In fact, at the beginning of this year, I started off with stating to the company that we're going to have AI as an underpinning to everything that we do. And that's design, engineering, accounting, inventory, everything. So
Mhm.
we have started the investigation. I won't tell you that I'm on time, but I'm getting faster, but we are looking to apply AI across our quality control and our detailing on our plans to make sure that these small little details from page to page to page are accurate, the same, never changing. Because if anything's wrong on those plans, as a general contractor, that it'll go offline quick on the job site. And we don't want that. So AI is not only a tool, it's a requirement that the business will have to lean on and use and utilize in order for it to succeed. I know that to be the case. I don't have all the answers yet. We're figuring it out. We're on our way.
Well, hopefully, I could be a pivotal moment in your decision making. I have looked into some of the things that we talked about on our first call, and I would very much like to get on a discovery call with you guys and go over some options that I've come up with for your company if you're open to it.
Our whole team is open for it. Our whole team is highly collaborative. It's interesting. We all have offices, but nobody sits in the office. Everybody works in the conference room because
I
everybody
love
likes
that.
to exchange ideas when we're talking.
That's
And,
the best way to
I
be.
always I just say, why don't we just make this one big open space for the entire building, one space, because
You
it
should.
seems like it work better.
Yeah, you should just have a little like meeting room and be done
Yeah.
with it.
That's
But
it.
that's awesome. Thank you so much for your insight today. I really appreciate you joining us and sharing your perspective. The reminder that innovation in construction isn't just about materials, it's about communication and process. It's a really important takeaway. Protecting information flow from the design to the job site is what keeps projects on time, on budget, and moving forward. Thanks again for being a part of the conversation. And I definitely will reach out for that discovery call to see what we could do in the future.
Jessica, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Love talking about it, and let's continue to improve the industry.
Awesome, Stanley. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thanks so much.